And to the final part of my interview with the Five Eyes law enforcement group, and we discussed in part why this grouping, the Five Eyes, remains such a pivotal part in the defence of our allies. Do our law enforcement agencies have links that are unaffected by changes of government? I guess I asked that, Commissioner Costa, to you first of all. When you look at our recent change of government, I know you've met already, all of you, with our new Attorney General, and do you feel that changes of government in our nations really have little impact in terms of your cooperation? Do they go on unaffected?
Absolutely. I think the beauty of law enforcement connection, particularly between our countries, is it's enduring and sits outside of the politics. So even if there are tensions between countries, we see ongoing cooperation. I think it's because people recognise it's too important for us not to work together. So, you know, we have strong relationships that endure beyond governments. Assistant
Commissioner Dukes, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the one thing we can say about this group is it is enduring. You know, this was a group that was born out of the Second World War. So there's been a huge amount of political change, but what every government has a duty to do and has a consensus around is the duty to protect its citizens from harm. And that has endured from the end of the Second World War to 2022. And, you know, I've no doubt it will long beyond. And it's lived out every day because we know that we'll work together regardless of that ebb and flow. But we also know that our governments are really committed to working together to counter these threats.
So why is it important for you all to sit down in the same room and look at each other and talk about these things face to face? Why is this sort of grouping important, Commissioner Lucky?
Well, there's certain things you can obviously do picking up a phone, but when you are in person, there's a lot of conversations that happen. There's a lot of free flow of information. It sparks other conversations. It brings us down different roads that we decide, you know, what are our priorities? What are we going to focus on in the next year? I give great credit to Commissioner Kershaw. Sorry. Because, you know, we are looking at themes, we're looking at things that we should be prioritizing ourselves with. How can we work together on commonality? And how can we get the people that are working with us, you know, all the police officers that are working with us? And I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to the men and women on the street who work relentlessly, tirelessly, and, you know, their resiliency gets affected each and every day with what they deal with and what they see, you know, when we're dealing with online space and some of the tragedies and some of the things that they face. And we're very fortunate because we're only as good as those that are on the street working 24/7 to protect our countries.
Indeed, and those behind the computer terminals and all the others horrific things that they've got to do day to day. Let me wrap up, if I can, with a view from all of you on a similar question to what we've been discussing, but a nice way to wrap up our chat here at the Opera House. Deputy Director Abbate, what is our greatest strength as a Five Eyes grouping, these nations that work together?
I go back to what we've already touched upon. It's, you know, it's protecting human life. That's how we prioritize things. That includes preventing terrorist attacks, reducing violent crime, much of which stems from the transnational criminal organizations we've talked about today. So we treat that urgently, and we're laser focused on that in everything that we do. And again, it spans the range of threats that we work to counter every day. And that's essential in this community. The law enforcement community and the relationships we share serve as a pillar of that. And it's reflected, again, in the relentless work that our personnel do side by side each and every day. And we're going to continue to fight on in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. And Deputy Director General, Director General Stephen Rothaus, your reflections on that as a grouping. What is our greatest strength?
Yeah, I can be brief. I think our greatest strength is the trust that we have in each other and our shared motivation to protect the public. It is as simple as that.
Mike Phelan?
Certainly our common, I suppose, goals, you know, that we've got there, our common adherence to the rule of law, and certainly the faith and the trust that we have amongst each other to be able to share.
Commissioner Costa.
To kind of echo what's been said, you know, for me it's the shared values that we hold, our beliefs about what's important, be it in government, in the way we live, and the freedoms that we protect, and that's what unites us.
Assistant Commissioner Jukes, from my perspective, listening to all of you here today, it is reassuring to hear the cooperation, the level of trust that exists.
Yeah, and I think people should be reassured on two levels. The first is that we're bearing down on today's problems. So we've talked about working cases this week that will actually bring the powerful potential of our organisations together, but we've also talked about getting ahead and looking ahead. So we're moving at those two speeds, whether it's countering the terrorist threat, countering serious and organised crime. We're going to be stronger together in the way that we do that.
So, Commissioner Lucky, no rest?
No rest. You know, the commitment is unrelenting in this group, and it's really about translating our discussions into viable action that reduces harm.
Federal Police Commissioner Reece Kershaw, final thoughts to you as you've brought together this grouping here in Sydney this week, and how do you reflect on the strengths that maintain it?
I think everyone summed it up absolutely correctly, and we're united. We're united in this fight. We do share common values, common goals, and also for us, rule of law is really important, and democracy and the way of life, as everyone's put here, and the threat to life. And in our act, it's about safeguarding the national interest, but also protecting our communities. And that is one thing that we all share, have those common goals, common values, and we are totally united.
And a common burden that you all share. We thank you for it. The Five Eyes Law Enforcement Group, thank you for giving us your time. We appreciate it, to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.